Legislator Carter.
Present.
Coffee. Present. Director Young.
Present.
Director Boyd is present, and Director Decker is not with us tonight.
It's all right.
Yes, this is a plan.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, good. Okay.
Okay. So let's see. President's statement. Hope you all got to take a look at letter I wrote to the cabinet review. I think the short and sweet of it is there's a proceeding that indicates from the mayor. And they prominently mentioned a key fact, which is that the lawsuit, which they talk about they're hoping to win, is one they have already lost. And what's actually happening in the courts right now is an attempt to appeal. But the court, I'll just note that the court was quite clear in its reasoning for the decision that it rendered. And it's good reading, and it's on the Montara and Water and Sanitary District website at mwsd.montara.org. Feel free to check that out. All right. Do we have any oral comments for items that are not on the agenda?
I think that would
Director
be me.
Falke?
If you could give me a moment, because I didn't know it would come that fast.
Comes from the least expected.
A couple weeks ago, I was with Clemens in Monterey at the ACWA, that's the Association of California Water Agencies conference. And for the first time, got to be an actual director involved in actual public policy, hanging out among essentially California's water policy creators. And given California's influence in the world, that's saying something. One of the most stunning presentations was by, I think he was the city manager of Paradise. That's a town up north of Santa Rosa, which incinerated in the space of a few hours several years ago. And he was describing essentially what it's like to run an emergency response team when almost everything you have has just gone away. That made me realize that our goal to save lives here is not just day to day and year to year by making sure the water is pure and the sewage is taken care of, but being ready for the once in a lifetime possible awfulness of some kind of disaster where it really matters if we know our neighbors. And so once I saw how important it is for a town to save lives by knowing who people are and being ready in advance with a kind of community, I'm envisioning building community as a kind of public service which is in the exact same category as what we do day to day, except envisioning circumstances which are not the ones we have now. So that is a vision I had from a conference, and it will probably inform a lot of other ideas I have on other issues for a long time. But that's pretty much it.
All right. Cool. Thank you, Bill. Any other comments for items that are not on the agenda?
Only this, that I had Clemens circulate, and it was in the most recent CSDA email, and it talked about a resiliency funding that we can apply for. And if you get a chance to read through it, I know it just got sent out, but it's for community resilience centers programs, and could be communications, it could be water, it could be a lot of things. If you read through it, it'd be great if we could take advantage of that, since we are a water district, and maybe we also have those cell phone towers up on our tanks, etc. Who knows? We might be. There is no emergency evacuation center on the coast other than down in Halfmoon Bay, so maybe we could have some offer of giving out water here or whatever. I think we have in the past, right, Clemens?
So what?
That's okay.
When we have a water dispensing station for times when people's homes are having trouble getting water, for well failures, like during power outages, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We have that set up right here at the district headquarters.
Yes, we have a setup.
And we don't have shelters, but we could have a cell phone charging area or something like that. It's all about the resiliency. So look into it.
In that context, I want to point out this is actually something that is very important to understand. In case of an emergency, and let's assume an earthquake, for example, or let it be a tsunami, whatever that is, right? In case of an earthquake, #1 priority for water is fire protection, right? So all the water that is available will be used to extinguish fires. if these tanks run out coast side wide or coast wide, Montara is the only agency that can refill the tank for the health and safety. That is going to be very difficult for our neighboring agencies, and I'm going to say, you know, in a much larger area. So we have a huge advantage. That little fill station, or a second one that we put up, is something that other communities do not have for this emergency. Okay, so it's very important to understand.
So our crew here, our team here has been diligent. I think some of the outages that we've experienced, the team has really stepped up to think, okay, what can we do to help provide during outages that do things like make it so, you know, people on wells have pumps they can't run. It's just it's such a simple thing to be able to pull up and fill a container, but it's so essential. So kudos to the crew, and I'm sure with more thinking, there's going to be more that we're going to be able to do.
Right.
All right, great. Any other public comments? All right, let's go on then to public hearings. We have 3. First is review and possible action concerning transition from at-large to by-division based elections.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So this is the 3rd public hearing. So anyone with questions about the process, please go to our website or call us and ask questions, but we're in the middle of this process. So Redistricting Partners, Elizabeth is helping us through this process and guiding us through this. So again, we're at the 3rd public hearing. Today, we're looking actually at draft maps for the first time, and those draft maps were posted a week ago online for anyone to review, comment, and participate. With that, I'm just going to hand it over to Elizabeth, and please, continue guiding us through this process as you did before. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, happy to. Good evening, everyone, board members and staff. So as Clement said, tonight will be the introduction of the maps. We'll go over the traditional districting principles that we use to craft it and the COI testimony that we received. We'll go over the current map, so the at-large map, and then we'll get into the draft maps and the next steps. And I do just want to reiterate that these are just the first draft maps. I will be getting your input tonight on what you think, along with anyone from the public, and we'll be making adjustments as well. So these are the redistricting and districting principles that we use to craft the maps. So each district is relatively equal in size. And the way that that's determined is they all have a total deviation of less than 10%. Then every district is contiguous, so they're one whole piece. They maintain communities of interest as much as possible, follow city and census designated places as much as possible, and also things like man-made boundaries, like main thoroughfares, and natural boundaries like rivers and mountains and things like that. And then they keep districts compact. So this is the community of interest we have received. We talked about it in the last meeting. This is the Pillar Ridge community in the southern portion of the district. And just the way that this community is situated is it will always be maintained together. I don't know if you can see in that slide, but it is nested within another census block. And that essentially ensures that it will be maintained together. So this is the at-large district that you all are very familiar with. When we look at the total population, it is about 5,500. and dividing that by 5, you're going to get about 1,100 people per district. So we did make some draft maps, and these are options sort of to get the creative juices flowing. And I would love to hear which maps you like, which maps you don't like. In fact, if you don't like any of them, you can let me know and we can start from scratch. Or if you do like some, but you want some changes, we'll absolutely do that. So the first one, map A, it follows the districting principles, and it purposely underpopulates the Pillar Ridge district to compensate for their undercount. And then draft B, it creates a rural district, assuming that that community has different needs and requirements from a water and sanitation district. And then C, it's essentially a different rejiggering of map A, but it has a very, very low deviation. So here is map A. And when we look at the total deviation, it is 6.3%. So remembering that because these are small districts, we do have to have that deviation of less than 50 people per district. And then here we have draft map B. So this is the rural district right here. It's obviously not compact, but with the intention of having protected a community of interest. And here you can see the census data and the citizen voting age population data. This gives us a total deviation of 4.3%. Here is draft map C. So this one creates a larger district up in the north, and it does go a little bit into Moss Beach area. And then 3 also splits a little bit of Moss Beach. But for the most part, this is all of Montara and Moss Beach. So you can see where the population hubs are in all of these maps. And again, this one is the very low deviation, so it is 1.7%. So I know I went through those quickly, but I do have the maps up in a URL link so we can zoom into the specific borders. So what the next steps are now, it's identifying the maps that you do like. It's identifying the maps that you don't like, suggest possible changes, provide direction on what those changes should be. And we can do it live, or you can give me those changes and I will get them back to you shortly over the next week. And then of course, you all have the option of naming what you want your districts to be called. So oftentimes a special district, especially like a water district, they'll call their districts zones or wards. So you don't have to make up your mind tonight, but I definitely wanted to throw it out there that you have the option of calling your districts a different name, which is very common for special districts. So like Clemens mentioned, this is the 3rd meeting. This is the first meeting of the draft maps. Next time, July 20th, we will present you revised maps. And if there are any community members who submit draft maps, we will also be presenting you their options as well. August 17th is the proposed final map adoption. If you need a little bit more time, I'm sure we could push it off a month, but with the goal of having April 17th being the final vote. So with that...
Oh, you said April.
You said April.
Oh, August 17th. Okay. So with that, I'm happy to take questions. I also know I think you have to open the public hearing as well and take comments from the public. But very happy to also zoom into the different maps and show you where the different lines are.
I've got some questions.
I have to go through a careful procedure here. Okay, so we're going to open the public hearing, and then we're going to allow relevant testimony, and then we're going to close the public hearing with a vote, and then we'll have some board discussion, and then we'll offer direction to redistricting partners. Okay, so I declare the public hearing open, and I'm looking to the public for comment, and I recognize Lisa Ketchum.
Thank you. Option, is it an option? B. With the rural area, I'm curious to know how Pillar Ridge fits in with rural areas. It's the most dense 22 acres in the mid-coast. If you lived here, you wouldn't think. I guess, you know, I already said this whole district thing is very awkward. And given that there's not, you know, politics going on here, or really it's like, what are we looking for? I mean, it's like, are we looking for where we're most likely to know other people? I mean, because in that case, I would suppose the map B would be where I would be least likely to know people or something. I don't know. I just would like some more clarification of what the goal of that map was. Thanks.
Do you have other comment?
Me? No, sorry.
From anyone else? Or you, Lisa? I mean, that's fine too. All right. Well, then, with that public comment, can I have a motion to close?
We have another public comment from Bob.
Oh, hey, Bob. Bob, take that, please.
You're on mute, Bob.
Bob, we can't hear you. I think he's saying 1 second.
Or 2 seconds. There was 2 fingers.
The 2 fingers. Yeah.
I think.
At least it wasn't.
Okay, I think I found. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was having technical difficulty. So I have a question at the end, but I do have to bring up a couple of points about the districting. It's a done deal, but I would like to ask, probably for an attorney's opinion. What we have is an asset that we paid millions for, Moss Beach and Montara. We've spent millions to repair the infrastructure, to upgrade the storage distribution. It's a valuable asset. As I explained the last time, that it is unable people are unable to currently get elected because they will need like 1,500 votes. By reducing the districts, taking the lowest number is now 570 some, which means our board can be controlled by less individuals. And my fear is that our assets are valuable, and trust me, others know they're valuable, and there's a reason that they would like us to have it and would probably encourage a board to do that. My question is, it can't be undone for the districting, but I would like to see Montara do a pass a board resolution that it would take 60 to 70% of the voters to agree to allow mergers and sales or disposals of our asset. Now, that can obviously be done by a majority of the vote at that time. However, that would at least be the canary for the community to know that that's going on, and hopefully the community can respond to that. But that would be my suggestion. My question for the maps are, which zones do we now, we have a maintenance plan, we have a 20-year repair plan, and so on, is based on the entire district. Are we going to have to maintain zone-related maintenance schedules to make sure that if we're doing things in zone 1, that folks in zone 2 don't say, hey, how about me? I need stuff done, and why aren't you doing it here? Which would increase our cost and expense, because keeping track of 5 things costs and takes longer than the other. And thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob. Do we have any other public testimony? Okay, seeing no other public testimony, can I have
I make the motion to close the public testimony for this meeting.
Okay, so the motion is to close the public hearing with a motion by Catherine, second by Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion is, pardon me, the public hearing is closed. We have some questions. Let's go first to get answers to those. Elizabeth, you want to start with the one that was directed to you?
Absolutely. So I believe there were a couple. So I'll go with Lisa's question first. What was the goal of B, particularly the rural district, and why was the Pillar Ridge community included in that rural area? Quite frankly, just for population balance. So because this district is so small, there are going to be some areas where we need to pick up some pockets of population. Now, that being said, if we are getting community input that they don't like this map, then that's great input. So I think that's it's definitely something that I noted, and I appreciate your comment, Lisa. And then Bob's comment on essentially working together or working zone by zone. That is completely up to you. It's more of a cultural issue for a board. There is no obligation, and Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no legal obligation that requires zones to work separately. So if you want to continue to uphold the maintenance the way it currently is, then you can absolutely keep doing that.
All right. Yeah, I'll just put it in simple terms. This is strictly about how elections are conducted. It's fully bounded by how the elections are conducted and has no other bearing. Okay, let's take it to the board. Let's see, I saw your hand first, Sid. Bill, I saw you second. Catherine, I'm guessing you're going to want to go.
Okay, one of them is for Elizabeth. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I understand Lisa's concern about being lumped in with a rural district that looks massive, all the way to the top of the north part of Montara and in the back. It didn't make any sense to me. But she also had sent an email saying that Pillar Ridge is normally about 900 people per the millennium. I forget what she called it, but it's a survey they do every year because it's a lower income area. They have to submit that to some government agency. So you have it down here as 590, and she says it's been for the last several years closer to 900 or 850. So did you change that in these original population? I know we pretty much figured there was an undercount during the census, but did you now take that into account when you drew up the new maps?
So we can't change the census data. Even if we get updated information, and even if you change to districts in a few years, naturally that population will change. You still have to use the 2020 census data. So so we did not change it, but Map A purposely underpopulates the district that community is in to compensate partially that it's undercounted. So what we could do is also try to continue to underpopulate that area, knowing that it has a larger population in reality. The other issue that we're coming upon, though, is we don't know if there are other areas in the district that are also underpopulated. So it's just something to think about as well.
I guess the word underpopulated is confusing to me. They probably have a higher population, but you're calling that underpopulated, right?
Or it's undercounted. I'm sorry. It's undercounted.
Okay.
They have a higher population.
Because the last census was 2020, and there might be a 71 unit project on the books to be built, but we don't know when it'll ever break ground or be finished and be habitable. We can't take into consideration that at this time while we're doing these maps, but it could vastly skew later. If it's 71 units and some of them are 3 bedrooms.
And which area did you say that was?
Well, I didn't, but it's in, if you look on a map where you can see the Montara Creek takes a bend and heads out to the ocean, it's in the area right at the corner of Carlos Street. It's in Moss Beach, but on the edge of Moss Beach, right, the creek is the border. So you can't really take into consideration a future population, but at some point, you know, even if we undercounted Filler Ridge, that might, if it was part of a Moss Beach district, it might make that person's district way bigger. So I didn't know if that's going to make a difference. We can't really accommodate that now.
Yeah, that's right. And this happens to a lot of places, especially in California, how they're trying to build housing. And that is one of the issues that we come upon again and again is there are housing projects and people are trying to anticipate that. The problem is we just can't anticipate it. And we also worked with the county of Butte, where Paradise was, and doing a redistricting for them. There's no way they could have predicted that an entire city would have been essentially gone. So especially with climate change, we really can't predict what the population is going to be like. But that being said, that's why redistricting happens every 10 years. So, you know, it's 2023, these go into effect 2024. And then you'll have another 6 or 7 years before you go through the redistricting process.
And we'll see what happens. Okay, and so my last question is, I looked kind of fine-grained on some of these maps, and like there's a bunch of horse stables and stuff in the rural area, and one of them, you cut down the middle of it, so like stables on one side are not counted and stables on the other. There are people living in RVs there. I don't know if they vote. I don't know, you know, if they're on the water district or not, but they are a population. And also back in the very back of Montara, there's other farms like that that have people living in RVs.
Can you, if I share my screen, can you tell me where that is?
Offline, because you give me your email and I'll just send you what I know.
Send it to me, I'll forward it.
Yeah, send it to Clemens. And
All right. What you said if members of the public wanted to send you in a map that they could reach you to, is that on the website? Or do you want to go have everybody send it to Clemens and he can massage it and send it to you? Okay.
I doubt if he will massage it.
Well,
I think he will send it direct.
Forward it direct.
Right.
Sorry, wrong choice of words. Okay. All right. I will send you what I know. Thank you.
All right, Bill?
Well, this is all about the presentation in one form or another. And first of all, it was intensely professional. And that's what we paid for, and that's what the law requires of us. But what the law requires is sort of a problem in the first place, because it wasn't as if the people of Montara asked for redistricting. It's, from what I hear, it was one person, and then there was a law which allowed attorneys to recap fees. So much of what we're dealing with now is because of a law so badly written that attorneys get to profit by doing this to all kinds of special districts. I think that's a bad idea in general. But we have a badly written law to deal with, and we want to follow it and use what choices we can. And that's where I'm coming from. So you kept talking about how, Elizabeth, you were talking about how we got this percentage and that percentage. And from the strict point of view of how closely the population of each targeted district matches, 1/5 of the overall population. That's cool. That's a nice number. I think it's numerically somewhat irrelevant, being a data scientist who actually knows how to draw maps from sort of map making principles much better than legislators do. So, but it is what the law requires, but it isn't really interesting to me. And even the idea of a rural district, as if all rural people had the same kind of interests, my guess is if we had to pick something, Pillar Ridge is an obvious one. Absolutely, holding Pillar Ridge as an identified community ought to be on one of the maps. But otherwise, we've got people who share water lines and they share sewage dependencies and they share potential sewage outflows. And those seem to be natural common factors which are related to our business much more closely than sort of conventional state level demographic ideas, which everybody might have, but we don't actually have to deal with. So since I'm a data guy, and since I know that we're kind of reaching about in the dark on principles to use, and we don't really have that much raw input, there hasn't been that much public commentary in order to say the public has clearly spoken this way or that way, if we only get a couple comments, I would ask for two more things. One is that the PDFs visible online, those are the ones I looked at. If the ones downloadable or different, maybe, have sufficient resolution that everyone can identify their own house. I looked for mine. I could not tell what district boundary I was in. So first of all, just higher resolution, doesn't cost much. We can afford the download costs. And the other is that they show probably both the actual physical locations, let's say, of all the board members in history or something. So not enough to necessarily say exactly who now lives where, because I don't know how much that we want that in public, but some idea of how the demographics of voting actually have happened and who has been elected. Because right now, I literally have to imagine what district I live in and what district everybody else lives in. And even if you only had to show it to us privately, I would very much appreciate a map in which, in every case, I can see which district, which director lives where, because that might be our biggest problem. Our biggest problem might be if all three of us live in the same district, and now we have two of us who have to leave in one district, or two districts which have nobody, right? That's a thing, and that would cost us money and time. So we should at least know what the information is when we're making that decision. So that's my general perspective.
All right, thanks, Bill.
And is it okay for me to speak, or do you want to go on to?
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
So I did provide URL links. Here they are, and you can actually, and hopefully these are on the website too, where you can actually zoom in and you can type in addresses and look up where houses or businesses are. So you can definitely do that on here. And then to address the other issue you brought up on, who ran and where did they live, we do try to honor the Fair Maps Act, where we don't look at incumbents. We're sort of blind on that. I can't prevent you guys from doing that. I imagine just innately you would be thinking about that, but I as a demographer cannot do that.
Okay, so I've got questions on both of those. First of all, the URL links are the links which I could not read 4th Street, 5th Street, 6th Street. I would like a map of sufficient resolution where it's super easy to read every single street name, okay? That is my request. I don't know, maybe you can't or aren't allowed to do that, but I hope it's easy because that would make the other stuff easier. The other is, of course you don't use the locations of current incumbents in drawing boundaries, of course. But insofar as you have the mapping software running on your machines, we don't, it's vastly more convenient for us to have you show that to us. I'm not saying redraw anything, but insofar as people ought to vote based on lots of things, including how difficult it is to actually elect members, to that same degree, people ought to know where people live, or at least what district they're in.
Okay, so thanks for that. Catherine?
Thank you.
Remember the mic.
Oh, remember the mic. Hello, Mike. I wanted to thank Lisa and Bob for your comments. And I think you're both right on point. I like your idea of passing a resolution, and perhaps in that resolution should be something about notification for every household several times before anything like this, any kind of consolidation happens. And Lisa, I agree with you. I think the rural areas and having Pillar Ridge in the same district makes no sense. And frankly, I didn't like any of the maps. One of the reasons I'm concerned about the rural areas is because we don't have water service except through fire protection. So it's a very different situation for those of us who live in the rural areas. Our needs for water particularly revolve around the fire safety for the entire community. We are, for the most part, each on individual wells. Now that also excludes the Old Westinghouse subdivision. I've forgotten what it's called now, but anyway, because they're all on water connections. But the rest who are not part of that are not. So that's something to look at if at all possible. And of course, that section is that particular development is right in the middle of the rural area, dividing the north from the south. So I'd like to see some attention to that detail. I also think that there are in the urban area itself, there are quite a few people who scattered, but I believe there are clusters of them who are on individual wells. And again, their interest in the water system, they're all on sewer, but their interest in the water system is that they get backup water from our water system, unlike the rural area, but they don't have a connection. And so we might want to look if there's any way. The county, by the way, for the public and anyone else, didn't keep good maps on where the wells were located. I don't know if we've been able to make up some of that data or not, because the county, we may or may not have, but I think that's one. Those are two populations of interest. You've actually got three populations of interest that aren't necessarily specified under the law because it's not a racial or a nationality, but it is very much a financial and health and safety issue, which is the real function of this district for everyone, aside from that. So I'd like to see some updating of the maps. The other is I'd like to find a way to get this process more present, top of mind for the public. I talked to a couple people the other day, and these are people who are generally really informed on what's going on, and they were clueless about this. So, Clemens, I'd be happy to work with you later in June to put together a flyer. I'm more than happy to, in English, and we should put it out in Spanish. I'm more than happy to go door to door in Pillar Ridge. I'm more than happy to stand at Montara post office and post it on all kinds of places so people can see what's going on. And I think this first set of maps, it's not as relevant, but when we start getting around to the second set, I think it will become more refined. And to Bill's point, it needs to be easier for people to see exactly where they are located.
The streets.
Either by the streets and by higher definition. But I think looking at other communities of interest, for instance, there are business communities of interest that are in sort of rundown Highway 1. And they're kind of, although people don't live in those, and so that's kind of silly. They're distributed throughout the community, so I retract that. In terms of their residencies and the voting. But anyway, so yeah, that my main concern is communities of interest based on levels of service. Thank you.
All right, I've got a few things. One, I'm seeing like on map 1, I'm seeing examples of boundaries that come up close to but don't fully encompass what is obviously a natural neighborhood. So like if you take a look at 2 down at the bottom right corner, if you take the kind of the right edge, it's actually diagonal, but that right edge, you're actually kind of splitting right down the street that has very similarly situated homes on either side of that street. And if you look at on the same map 4, you'll see that a community on the northeast side of Highway 1 in Moss Beach is split kind of jagged way through, and that's just, you're just splitting up a real natural neighborhood there. Okay. And you know, to the question of
Why?
Well, no, I mean I don't expect you to know these things. We know these things because we live here. But I would take greater pains to keep the natural neighborhoods together. I'm also though really interested in, like, for example, if you look at Pillar Ridge in all 3 cases, I'm thinking one, the income disparity may put someone living in Pillar Ridge campaigning against someone from Seal Cove, where the income disparity is profound. And if the point is to provide an opportunity for people to stand and run and gain a seat at the board, I know that the availability of money, unfortunately, can make a real difference there. I also think it's important for us to attempt to do some clustering around communities of similar income demographics, allowing people to be on a more even footing. And then third, I would strongly emphasize that any district needs to be walkable. Our community is small enough. Many of us who have sat at this table have knocked on doors all over the district, but I promise you on map 2, someone living in Pillar Ridge who needs to go knock on Catherine's door has quite a walk. And while it's good for your health to get that kind of exercise, it really makes it hard to campaign. And it's not just going to be the candidate. It's been really common for friends to go knock doors, but there needs to be a walkable proximity. And I think map 2 is a really good counterexample, and one that we should use as, and here's a map that kind of looks good, but let me tell you about all of its problems. Because if we want to encourage the community to jump into this, we could say, hey, this map looks really reasonable at first glance, but we need your help, we need your input, because you're going to see things like it's not walkable. I may be running against someone who makes 10 times what I make, you know, whatever, you split it right down my street. So we really are going to do better if we can stimulate that. And I think having a good, here's a good counterexample map is a good way to do that, because that really grabs people. Then I have one more question for you. And I went through a redistricting training a couple of years ago, and they gave me access to davesredistricting.org. Yeah, I see the smile on your face, so you recognize this. Do you know offhand if that's something that anyone can get access to? I just don't recall.
Yeah, it's absolutely free for the public to use. And you'll have access to it if you just, I think it is davesredistricting.org or something like that. I believe you would have to create your own sort of district. I don't use that one as much as I use Districtor, and obviously not as much as I use Maptitude. But you're right, the public can use that if you want.
Okay, I'll try to look into it and see if we can get enough population info to actually help us do this job. You said that Maptitude was the one that you rely on most?
Maptitude is the software that we use. It costs a lot of money, so I highly doubt you'll be able to get access for it for free, like Districtor or Dave's. But I'm also happy to do live drawings with you all using Maptitude in future meetings as well. The one thing I do want to warn you about, if you do use Dave's or something like Districtor, is we had to split census blocks because your districts would have not been equal. So if you do run up against that issue, let me know and I can let you know which blocks we split.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm looking at the pricing for Maptitude, which I think is at caliper.com.
Yeah.
The pricing is not prohibitive. This is really important. You're right, it's not cheap, but for a single user, $420, it's not out of reach.
So we also have access to Districtor, where we can look into getting you guys a Districtor map for your district. If you want that, I can look into the cost for it. Maptitude, I'm used to it being a lot more expensive. So I also want to investigate that cost. But anyway.
Yeah, I would be inclined towards Maptitude just because you've done the work to figure out how to specify the map of interest. So it could probably lean a little more easily on your work if you haven't already done it. But if you're going to look into Districtor, then we might have an option. Okay, that's what I had. I see two more hands. Bill first, and then Sid.
No, Scott, your comment about walkability made me realize that there are implicitly two different kinds of motivations that one can use in organizing a district. One is common interests. Do you have well water versus our water? Are you on the inflow, the outflows? So they're like rural versus urban, as it were. And that is the standard way because our society wants to group people by economic interests as if all that really matters is money. Scott's point is almost exactly the opposite. The nature of actual communities of human beings who live and see each other in real life is about human beings who see each other in real life. And the fact that we have similar incomes and share water from the same tap is sort of a lucky accident. So given that reminder, I would highly encourage that our districting principles be around community-related things, whether you share the same water main or whether you're walkable or ideally a combination of both. And if you're in walkable distance of somebody who's got 10 times the income, maybe that's sort of God's plan. But I would love to see that as a principle because I think we all implicitly believe in it. And now he's made it clear. The other simple thing, I honestly don't know if you're allowed to do this. So I should probably ask if you're legally allowed to before I make the request, which would be to alongside of the map. So not necessarily causing the map, but to show us income level, color heat map on top of the boundaries, because it's like getting like an ancestry audit or something. This is our one chance to really know what we have in our community and to see pretty pictures and know who lives where and what's going on. And if you can't provide it for us, then we probably will never see it. So I'd like it if you're allowed to, but if not, I understand.
So that's one of the most common things that we do heat maps for. So I'm happy to do that. It is actually a very helpful way of identifying communities. And like you said, you'll have access to that if you want to use that data for other issues as well.
Thanks.
That's it.
I would just like to point out to the person who mentioned the income disparity of Pillar Ridge versus Seal Cove, that there are some people in Seal Cove that have lived there quite a while and are on a lower income than some of the yuppies that have moved there recently.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, I have about 6 friends that live at Pillar Ridge, and I don't consider them lesser just because they live there. I consider Seal Cove and Pillar Ridge neighbors.
Hang on,
Just so you know.
I need to respond to that.
Go ahead.
There is nothing lesser about or more about someone based on their income, and I would never support anything that led to that misunderstanding. No, what I'm saying is, I was actually thinking of some very nice bluff top homes that cost very large amounts of money. I'm thinking one in particular that I have been in, very nice home. They weren't yuppies, by the way. No, it's a matter of, if it costs $1,000 to run, and it doesn't necessarily cost $1,000 to run, but it can and has to run for office.
Oh, I see.
$1,000 to someone in a large expensive home means a lot. It's different than what it means to someone living in Pillar Ridge. And if our goal here is to increase equity and representation, then we need to do what we can to make it to try to avoid obvious disparities in available funds. We may not be able to pull that off, because if we're going to have 5 districts, Pillar Ridge is not population enough to account for an entire district, although it's darn close if we had an actual correct count. But the law as written is a blunt and dumb instrument. I think it doesn't have any fans in this room, but that's where we are. But no, I thank you for making the point. I'm glad to be able to say something to that.
And I would just like to point out that even for what they're calling rural, there are quite high income people living way up at the top of Alta Vista or out on Alamo, or those houses aren't cheap either. So you really can't go by the size of someone's house or the price they paid for it originally, or now what it's going for on the open market. You can't go by that, because that person might not have the same income these days as they once did.
I was thinking about new expensive homes that are walkable distance from Pillar Ridge. That's what I had in mind.
Well, I mean, I can think of one right now that's on the market for close to $5 million, but who knows who's going to buy it?
That's the same one I'm thinking of.
Right. Okay.
Let's see, Catherine.
I just wanted to add that there are a lot of retirees in this community, and some may have more income than others. And there are probably more pockets of retirees in the older neighborhoods than in the newer ones. So it's a difficult thing to sort out the income. And also, the other part is with the state and the county pushing for affordable housing inside every house as second units. That makes a big difference too. And so the county and pretty much the district don't know where these second units are. We know nothing about the demographics except through the census of the residents of any house. I personally think there is a income discrepancy, and having looked at the census income numbers, what I have discovered is what appears to be a higher income, for instance, in Montara and Lost Beach than other areas, is we tend to be lower in debt. and our lifestyle is one of more thrift than some other communities where people live on the edge. So I'm not quite sure exactly how, although there are that many people in Pillar Ridge, there may be that many people in any other district who are also low income. I know them. As a matter of fact, the reason I got on this board was because of what the county was going to be doing to low income people out in the rural area.
What?
I'll explain it to you later. That's not here nor there.
Okay.
And so I think it's something to pay attention to, but I'm not sure it's a decision maker.
Income.
Yeah, income.
Okay.
I don't either.
So we've had a lot of discussion. We do have quite a bit more to do tonight. Elizabeth, thank you very much. And I'm sure some of us will be getting information to you. Again, to members of the public, if you have feedback, please send it to Clemens here at the district. And Clemens, off the top of my head, I want to get your email right.
Just the info@mwsd.net will do. That's all over our website. So once again, info@mwsd.net.
Terrific. Thank you. All right. Let's find another public hearing item if my packet will load. Okay. Review and possible action concerning adoption of a revised master fee schedule.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. This is standard procedure for the district. We go through this every year. The district has a master fee schedule that essentially specifies what the charges, rates, and fees are supposed to be for the coming year. And we went through a lengthy Prop 218 process this year that allowed us to increase up to 6% the sewer service charges, water rates, water system reliability charges. And through the budget process, we already essentially told the board that the 6% is what we will need for this coming year. So again, we have in this revision of the master fee schedule a 6% rate increase for all of our rates, which is sewer service charges, water rates, and water system reliability charge. In addition to that, there is other fees and charges listed in the master fee schedule. And essentially those can be split in administrative or inspection fees that really are staff work, so it's time. So those we increase every year by the that's the U.S. Bureau of Labor Consumers Price Index, and that's for specific for our area, for the San Francisco Bay. Then there is other charges, for example, the connection charges, other construction related fees. They are increasing this year by 1.38%. And I want to mention this because last year the last 2 years, we saw very significant increases in the cost of construction in California. So last year alone, it was 23%. So all associated charges, for example, connection charges, went up significantly in recent years. So this year only a 1.38%. We are asking, as we do with every public hearing, to open the public hearing, consider relevant public testimony, close the public hearing, and then adopt the ordinance of the Montara Water and Sanitary District restating and amending the master fee schedule.
All right, thank you, Clemens. The public hearing is now open. Do we have any public testimony? Looking to the audience. Anyone at home? No public testimony? Just in case anybody's had a technical difficulty, give you a minute. All right, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
So a motion by Catherine, second by Sid. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The public hearing is closed by unanimous vote. Just under the wire, Catherine. Thank you.
Yeah, well.
All right. Do we have any more discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to point out to anyone that this does include a hardship thing that they instituted a little while back, so they didn't cut that out. In fact, I believe they increased this on page 9 of this document.
Yeah, thank you, Sid. That's also included. We brought this increase to the board a couple of meetings back, and that's also reflected in the new master fee schedule.
Okay. Anyone like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance?
I move that we adopt the master fee ordinance.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded as an ordinance. Let's do a roll call vote. Director Slater-Carter.
Aye.
Director Soft.
All right.
Director Young.
Aye.
And Director Boyd votes aye. By a vote of 4-0, the ordinance is enacted. Approved. Approved at least. I'll get that right.
Is it different? In fact?
You know, it's funny when you're on mic and on camera, all of a sudden words hard. It's the hardest thing is the names. So when I'm staring at you, I'm like, please don't forget Bill's name. Please don't forget Sid's name.
Glad you're
How
doing
can you
it.
forget a girl named Sid?
You know,
Director Young, that might be harder.
Let me tell you about brain farts.
you'll have the opportunity that one day, all of a sudden, the awareness of I'm on camera is gonna. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it sure has happened to me. All right, let's go to the next public hearing item. Review and possible action confirming reports on sewer service charges and water system reliability charges for fiscal year 2023-2024, and delinquent refuse collection charges and water service charges for fiscal year 2022 through 2023.
Yeah, thanks for reading this long title, Scott. I appreciate it. So this district collects certain charges, for example, the sewer service charges, or I can be specific. The charges are, we collect a number of charges in the tax roll. So the Sanitary County tax collector essentially is a line item on the tax bill for every property, every developed property in the district. And in order to collect the sewer service charges, that's what we're collecting, the water system reliability charges, and also delinquent charges. They can be on the water side or they can be on the garbage collection side. Those charges are all collected through the tax roll. In order to do that, the Health and Safety Court requires that we hold a public hearing, and we're also required to adopt this resolution and share it with San Mateo County so that San Mateo County can actually proceed with this. So it's a very standard procedure again. So what the board really is approving now is a document that I have in my hands here. It's actually not shared. It's not in the board packet because it contains billing information that is confidential. If anyone wants to take a look, please do. So again, we're really asking to adopt this document and adopt this document by. Again, this is a public hearing, so we're asking to open the public hearing, allow pertinent public testimony, close the public hearing, and then adopt the resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District overruling protests and confirming reports on the sewer service charges and water system reliability charges for the fiscal year 23-24, delinquent refuse collection and water service charges for fiscal year 22-23, certifying lists of lots of parcels of land and corresponding charges against said lots or parcels, and directing transmittal of said certified list and charges to the county controller for entry on the current assessment roll. I hope the English teacher that let me fail in class was listening when I was reading that. Okay, thank you.
All right, well, I don't know, but that one is definitely in the running for the longest resolution title that I can remember. Do we have any board discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Okay, this looks like a list of the whole district, and the minus numbers are just, I'm not gonna say anything
No,
specific.
I just realized I'm doing things out of order. Let's
okay, go ahead. I'll ask.
Go ahead with your question, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't have I just want to know how many delinquents we had. I didn't want to know names or anything, but is it the place where it says collect? Is that the only ones that are the delinquents in this column here?
The delinquent list, so it's added in the charge. You will not necessarily be able to see who it is, where the delinquent charges are. But it's a separate list. The charges are all added in there. So you will not be able to find the delinquents in this list.
So
and that's also not
a dollar
purpose.
amount, or at least a sort of an estimate of what percentage of customers are delinquent out of the whole district? I was just curious.
I can get it to you, but it's usually, on the garbage side, it's actually quite a number of folks, 20, 30 at least.
Did you say garbage?
Yes.
Okay.
On the water side, this is very rare incident.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, I'm gonna.
All right.
Okay, so I open the public hearing. Do we have any testimony from members of the public? Motion to close the public hearing?
I move that we close the public hearing for this agenda item.
Can I have a second, please?
A second.
Okay, Catherine moved, and Bill second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So close the
Any-
public hearing.
Yes.
And in discussion.
Okay, so unanimous vote. The public hearing is closed. Do we have any board discussion? Sid?
In talking to Clemens earlier today, he did say that even if a person might be on this list, they still have a certain amount of time to catch it up. So before the property tax bills are sent to the county for the collection of the delinquent amounts. And just full disclosure, one year my husband made a mistake and didn't pay one of our bi-monthly garbage things, and I didn't discover it either until I saw it on my property tax bill, and I was like, what the hell? So, it could be that you want to make sure you've been paying all your bills on time if you don't know for sure, and then catch it up before it goes on your property tax bill. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and there are some people who believe that if they don't pay it and it goes on their property tax bill, they can make adjustments in their income and other taxes. I don't have a position on that. I'm not a tax attorney, but that also explains some of the people who choose not to pay.
I know one neighbor who used to say that she didn't have garbage, so she refused to pay, but they told her she had to, and she said she promised. So there's all kinds of reasons why people may elect not to pay, but then there's people like my husband that just made a error.
So let's take some action on this. Can I have a motion for the resolution as stated?
I move that we approve the resolution as stated.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to give it to Sid. Okay, so Catherine to move, Sid to second. It's a resolution by roll call. Director Slater-Carter.
Aye.
Director Softy. Aye. Director Young.
Aye.
Director Boyd is aye. By 4-0, the motion is adopted. Resolution is adopted. Okay, now get back to the top to read the next item on the agenda. We have the consent agenda. We have 10 items.
We have a comment.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, Bob.
It's not more of a comment, but a goodbye, because I got an early call to get out of to drive to Eugene tomorrow morning. So thank you for letting me speak and give you my 2 cents. I appreciate it. I'll call Clemens because I would like to take a look at the maps and stuff, and I couldn't find them on the website yet, but I assume they had to wait until the meeting today. So I'll see you guys on the 20th.
We'll make sure everyone can find them. But Bob, thank you for joining us.
For your benefit and everyone else's, it's right there under the What's New tab on the homepage. So
okay,
smack in the center of the website on the left.
It's just below the newsletter.
Yeah, so the newsletter is good at the down.
So Bob, thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to seeing you again.
Have a
Safe travels.
trip.
yeah. I may be in Yellowstone on the 20th, so I'll talk to Clemens if I can't make it. So.
They have Wi-Fi at the hotels.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Good night.
Good night. Does anyone care to pull anything from the consent agenda for board discussion?
I'd like to pull the SAM flow report. There's no chart there, and I'm wondering if we have it for April.
No, it's not there because, as the page says, the SAM board needs to approve the flows before they are shared with us.
Gotcha.
As soon as the SAM board approves the flow report for April, we can share it with this board.
Sounds good.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Just in case anybody's looking for a shortcut, saying so moved is plenty good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. Consent agenda is approved. New business item 1, review and possible action concerning Sewer Authority Mid-Coastside fiscal year 2023-2024 general budget.
All right, yes. So the SAM board approved to send out the general budget to the member agency for consideration and approval. The SAM board before that already approved the collections budget to be sent for consideration approval to the member agencies. This board took action and approved the collections budget. Now we're looking at the general budget. The general budget is essentially the Sewer Authority Mid-Coastside's budget. The collection budget is really more the services that the Sewer Authority Mid-Coastside provides in each of the member agency areas. The newest budget, this year's budget, is suggested to increase by $874,000. That's 10% over the prior fiscal year. It's a total of $9 million. The 23-24 assessment for this agency would be, or is, $1.7 million. Goes up by around $77,000 or 5%. We have Kishan Prativadi here, and actually also see George Evans, who was working on the SAM budget as well. And also Peter Medina did work on the SAM budget, so we have a team that can present the general budget and answer any questions. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Kishan and ask that he present the general budget. So you should be ready. You can share screen right now if you'd like, Kishan.
Very good. Thank you very much, Clemens. Before I get on to my presentation, I would like to mention that just like what Clemens indicated, the collections budget, which was approved by MWSD a couple of weeks back, and this is being brought to the board now, to the district board now for approval. But I'd like to mention that MWSD is the first member agency to get the collections budget approved and to bring this to the agency. So that's very good, and I thank the district for that. And I would just go for a short presentation, and most of the information is already in your packet, but just bringing up the highlights of the budget. And this budget would not have been possible without the teamwork by our finance officer, George Evans, our consultant, Peter Medina, and of course, our finance committee. So let me share my screen, please. You able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So the budget was prepared keeping in mind all authorized positions as of now, and all applicable merit step increases at 1 step are included in the budget. And we've also assumed that the 3% CPI to all non-personnel costs will remain as it is unless otherwise some changes are made due to any actual or anticipated events. And just to let you all know, the 3% CPI also is applicable to our staff wages. That is as per the MOU which has been signed with the union. So this gives you a general idea about the budget, where the wages and benefits have increased by about 228,000, legal and professional services by about 105,000, total operating budget increased by about 383, and the infrastructure has increased by about 490,000. There was an increase in the chemicals, as ours is more or less like a process plant. We use a lot of chemicals, and these chemical prices have been rising every year. But I would like everyone to know that we have signed a consortium with the Bay Area agency. So this is the best price that we get. It is actually done by the consortium. They go out for a bid and get the best price. We are a member of the consortium. So this is the best price, but knowing that all prices have gone up, these prices have gone up marginally, I would say. So this gives you an idea about the expenses by category, which I've already mentioned. Wages and benefits contribute about 27%. Legal and professional services contribute about 13%. Infrastructure contributes about 38%. So this is without the infrastructure. I've removed the infrastructure from it just to give you an idea about all operating expenses less infrastructure. Now the staffing information we've had, we are not requesting for any increase in staff. We have the total number of staff is actually 17, including the collections, but without the collections, it is 13 as indicated. And 13 employees in the general budget, 6 employees scheduled for step increase, 6 employees are currently in top step. So the key changes to the operating budget, you have the personnel costs, net increases due to the wage increases, you have the COLA and the merit increase, and the medical, which is the health and retirement costs increases. The engineering services treatment based on year-to-date actuals. Professional services are reduced due to one-time projects being completed. What we've done is we've taken some of these costs, professional services costs, to the infrastructure and clubbed it there, and therefore there is a reduction in the professional services. Insurance premiums are based on year-to-date actuals. The reduction is due to prior year's reduced claims, and we'll see how this year goes, but keeping my fingers crossed, hopefully it'll be the same as last year. Chemicals are based on year-to-date actuals. Increased costs, we've been having a little bit of process issues, so we've been having a larger consumption of chemicals and therefore have an increased cost. Repairs and maintenance is no change from the previous year. All these are based on expected needs. To give you an idea about our major vendors who constitute the legal and professional services, we have Calcon Systems, who are our electrical contractors. They take care of all our equipment maintenance, electrical at the treatment plant, as well as at the pump stations owned by SAN. Then we have Ratan and Thakkar, who is our general counsel. We have RV Accounting and Advisory, who are our consultants for financial. They help us with the monthly accounting, as well as with special items like the budget or with audit. We have Alpha Analytical Labs, who do the day-to-day requirement of testing, which needs to be submitted to Regional Water Quality Control Board. Although we have a small lab in-house, a large part of it has to be done by Alpha Analytical Labs. Then we have Peninsula Pump and Equipment, who take care of literally all the pumps maintenance, pumps and motors maintenance in-house at the treatment plant, as well as the pump station. They also take care of all our services for lift stations, which SAM actually operates on a contract basis, but that of course gets reimbursed by the member agencies as a pass-through. Precision IT Consulting, this is our IT firm. We contract all our IT requirements for this firm. They take care of all our server management, as well as taking care of all the day-to-day requirements of computers. If we have any glitches on the software or in the computer, they take care of it. And of course, we have Boucher, who is our special counsel, and they take care of HR as well as employment counsel. All our recruitment, new recruitment, as well as any other human relations issues is taken care by HR, as well by Boucher Law, as well as if there are any pending lawsuits or any upcoming potential lawsuits taken care of by Boucher Law. I don't know why it's not going to the next slide. There you go. Then we have the CalPERS rates, the employer rates. To give you an idea, we have the classic members. We have a couple of classic members as well as PEPRA members. As you're aware, classic members are those who have joined the CalPERS prior to, I believe, 2014, 2015. And PEPRA is for those who have joined CalPERS after. So the rates have increased in the classic from 11.6 to 13.26, and a marginally increase in PEPRA from 7.76 to 8%. This is for the employer, and then for the employee, it remains the same. And we have an unfunded liability, which is about $253,000 for classic. So the assessments are generally based on the calendar year, the previous calendar year flow. So which means that if the member agencies discharge more coming into SAM, then the assessments for them increases in the percentage. So based on the calendar year flow, my next slide actually shows you the flow in terms of percentages, but in terms of dollar amount, MWSD will be contributing to about $1.7 million, Half Moon Bay about 5.6, and GCSD is about 1.7. So compared to the previous budget, we had Montara has increased by about 77,798 in the general budget. So this is the flow allocations. You see that the yellow one is the Montara flows. There's been a slight increase. 2021 was 59.44%. And this year, or rather the last calendar year, it is 61.5. So all these flows are calculated based on calendar year. There has been also decrease in GCSD and decrease in, I'm sorry, I think I made a mistake. Half Moon Bay has increased from 59.4 to 61.5. Montara has decreased from 20.6 to 19.45, and GCSD has also decreased. So the only increase is from Half Moon Bay. So this is the division budgets by fiscal year. These are the various categories. You have administration, treatment, environmental compliance. This is a part of the operating budget. And then we have the infrastructure, which is increased from $3 million to $3.5 million. And out of the $3.5 million, we have set aside $2 million for the force main work, which needs to be done in the upcoming fiscal year. And that would primarily be just design and planning related work. And $1 million is set aside for the emergency generator, the treatment plant, and $500,000 for the boilers, replacement of boilers at the treatment plant. The details of which is already indicated in the packet, which is available with you. So that is it. And me and my staff, along with my consultant, Peter, are available here for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Keishan. It's good to see you. Let's go first to Greg Diegas.
So, folks, I'm going to make a few questions here because I don't want to make them at the SAM board meeting. There's enough discussion and controversy at the SAM board meeting about just basic authorization issues. I had three observations or questions. The first is that inflation at 3% seems too low, optimistic. I'm looking at the national CPI right now through April 2023. The overall for the prior 12 months was 4.9%. And of course, what we need more is a regional number that's related to us, but that just gives you an idea, 4.9 versus 3. Energy for gas and fuel oil went down, but electricity went up 8.4%. I believe electricity is a significant component of SAM's expenses. Maybe that should have some more consideration. But all in all, my overall comment, I don't know if it's a question, is that seems to be an optimistic budget. I assume that 3% is not applying to capital items, which we've seen separately are going up. I noted also that professional services went up 11%. I'm wondering if that includes some of the design studies or the investigation we're having to do. Was it called a hydromorphology study? I can't remember. You had a study by Integral Consulting of Pillarcitos Creek groundwater flow, and there's another 25,000, Kishan, that you were going to do. I can't remember the name of it, so I'm wondering why it went up 11%. And then I know chemicals went up 99%. I'm wondering if we have a repeat of the plant upset issues from a couple of years ago, and it's getting to the point where it's actually worth investing in better monitoring equipment to try and figure out where this is coming from and charging the businesses. So those are the three observations. One is inflation's too low. The other is professional services, how come up so much and what does it include? And the third is about the chemicals. Thanks.
Yes, if I may reply. Okay. I take it as a yes. So the inflation 3% is the standard which we've been taking, and just to let you know, we have been taking this 3% CPI increase, although last year also there was an increase, and we've been able to manage our budget very well without going for a mid-year budget adjustment. So we'll stay at the 3%, and if there is any increase in costs which go beyond our budget, we would possibly go for a mid-year budget adjustment. We didn't want to go by the existing high rate of inflation and then, cause a burden to the member agencies right now. The second is the second question which you had was on the the professional fees. Yes, those are for the various vendors that we've been using. One is definitely Integral Consulting for the hydraulic modeling work. Then we had Exponent for the site analysis. And these are the couple of things which we've been doing. Plus, of course, we had the emergency repair, emergency jobs coming up due to the winter storm of December and January. So all these have come up to the professional increase in professional fees. And the chemicals part of it, at this moment, there need not be any concern of any process upsets. This is a routine thing where we have to bump up some of the chemicals depending upon load day by day. But we do have the Sanitary system, which gives us real-time information about the loads coming into the plant. So going by what's happening over the past few months, there shouldn't be any concern of any process upsets repeating whatever happened in 2020. Did I answer all your questions, Greg? Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any others with questions or comments? Board members? Catherine?
I have comments. This has been a repeat for the public. The reason this is running long is that Montara has consistently approved this budget and sending it out to the public or to the agencies, the member agencies. Granada and Half Moon Bay have not. And frankly, part of the reason is that I think we have to be less than realistic, Greg, about inflation rates and cost increases, is because there are some member agencies, not this one, whose heads seem to be below their feet in the sand. And it's a problem. We have to get a budget. We have to fund the major public health agency on the coast, the one that allows us to have cities and apartments and close dwellings and clean beaches. So it's important for us to approve this, even though it's not as perfect or as realistic as some of us might like. Granada has their particular reasons, and Half Moon Bay has been quite clear that they want Montara and Granada to sign a legal stipulation that, and I'm not an attorney, I'm not pretending to be one, but applies to a completely separate legal case than the one of Half Moon Bay suing the rest of us, and they're trying to conflate the two legal cases. I urge MWSD to do what we need to move this on. I like being the first, and I hope we can convince Granada and Half Moon Bay to also join in. All of these other issues can be worked out, but holding the crew and the public health of the coast side, the entire coast side hostage to some interesting arguments, which have nothing to do with the budget, I believe is a disservice to the entire coast side. Thank you.
Well, I've got some comments, just brief, but Keishan, it's always great to see you. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for the detail in the budget. If for anyone who is listening to this but hasn't actually looked through the agenda packet to see, there's just a lot of really good detail. You go through this and you're going to come away with understanding this is a significant operation, a lot of different angles, a lot of different people, a lot of different moving parts, and a lot of not moving parts that move the water. But you know, you get down to like the Force Main Rehabilitation Project 1, you see pictures of old iron pipe with holes in it. You're like, we have to fix this. You can't look at this picture and think, you know, why? Oh, let's do this next year. No, it's like, hey, it needs to be done. I'm also impressed with, you know, you've got a list of the projects currently underway, various infrastructure work that has to be done, and some of it's taken a long time. It's a pretty hefty list of things that have been delayed by like things like, you know, shortages from the pandemic. But it's just rich with good information. I really appreciate the level of detail that you've gone into, Keishan. It's very easy for me to see comparisons year over year where some of the big increases are. And so for anyone who hasn't gone through this, it's good reading. I'm actually thinking about showing it to some friends. So thank you for that. I'm a strong supporter, and I want to say, you know, folks at SAM, we really appreciate the work you do. We're doing what we can, and we'll continue to do more to support your work because, well, it's important, and we all need it. Two more hands, Phil, and then Sid.
Hello, Keishan. Thank you for a very clear presentation. What I like most about it is your budget reflects the reality that you are running a system which has been going for at least 50 years or something like that. Montara, ours has been going for 60 years, and they all work together. All of the flow goes into one place and it mixes together and it needs to be managed. So this is a physical problem, an engineering problem, and you and we have crews which know how to manage difficult physical and engineering problems under difficult circumstances all together because they all part of one system. And therefore, your budget shows infrastructure and operating expenses and does not even pretend to divide it according to Montara, El Granada, Half Moon Bay, or anything else. Thank you for that. That is how reality is, and I hope we get to vote on budgets which are unified like this for a long time.
Okay, so.
Keishan, thank you so much. And I know, having watched old SAM board meetings from way back when, that you have been a stabilizing force down there compared to past people. But I did want to ask you, there was a article or matter of opinion in the newspaper, and then Scott, our director here, followed up with one of his own comments, and one of the people who lives down in Cañada Cove replied on the digital online version of the Half Moon Bay Review that he didn't understand why is the southern, as he called it, poop pipe different from the northern poop pipe, which is the IPS. And I tried to say that, you know, every district has their own pipes that they're supposed to be responsible for, but there's never been any argument that Half Moon Bay is responsible for the stuff that comes up the line to the plant from Ocean Colony or the Ritz-Carlton or Moonridge, is there? It's all their district. It's not part of the IPS, is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. That's not part of the IPS. It's like the laterals coming in and coming into the SAM plant.
Okay, thank you. Keep up the good job.
Thank you.
I just want to chime in on this comment. We also have further pressurized trunk lines that are very similar to the intertie pipeline that continue to extend further north from, you know, the intertie pipeline system, and that's also not up for debate. That this is becoming part of the SAM system. This is just our Montara system, as the Ocean Colony pipe is Half Moon Bay system.
All right. Well, we have it's fun trying to scroll around these documents and then get back to the place where it tells me what our proposed action is. So we have the proposed action. So I'm looking for general budget.
Did we already approve that? I forgot.
We have not.
Okay.
So I'm getting down to the start of the item, and the recommendation is that we adopt the resolution.
I'd like to make a motion
Yes.
to adopt the resolution next in order. Resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District consenting to approval by sewer authority Mid-Coast side of its general budget for fiscal year 2023 and through 2024.
Second.
All right. So motion by Catherine, second by Sid.
Lateral first.
I'll save the snarky comment till after.
I mean, we're first to approve.
So we got a resolution. Any further discussion? No. Okay. So roll call. Director Slater-Carter.
Aye.
Director Softy.
Aye.
Director Young.
Aye.
Director Boyd votes aye. And with our thanks, Keishan and SAM team and Clemens and everyone who's participated in getting it this far. Our thanks, and the motion is approved. The resolution is adopted.
Thank you very much for all the directors of MWSD for their kind words, and of course, all thanks to Clemens also to make this happen.
Thank you, and we please keep up the good work. We're glad you're doing it.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's not open a second window. A smart move here. It's been a long day.
You need this couple screens.
That's a good idea. Oh, wait, I have to. Item 2, review and possible action concerning approval of the 2023-2024 water and sewer budget and capital improvement programs.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. This board has seen the draft budget, draft versions of what we have in front of us tonight, at least twice. We also met with the finance committee to discuss the draft budget. And so here we have it in final form with only minor revisions to what everyone has been seeing. We've been waiting for the sewer service charge number to be calculated, so we have that information. We have updated projections trends, and I'm not going to take away from the highlights. I'm going to let Peter. Usually I always take away the highlights, but this year I'm not going to do it, Peter. You can go through essentially the main changes in the budget, but I do want to point out that there is also, of course, our water capital improvement program included, as well as our sewer capital improvement is also included in this budget. And we have both Tanya, our water engineer, and Pippin, our sewer engineer here, who help prepare those to answer any questions. As usual on capital improvement programs, what is really approved and looked at is the number that's in the budget, which is year 1 of these CIPs. Year 2, 3, 4, and 5 are always going to get revised the following year. Our budget process, it's also important to understand, our budget process actually also includes the authorization of a cost of living increase for all non-exempt employees. We already mentioned that the COLA for the cost of living increase specific for the San Francisco Bay Area is this year 4.19%, and we're referring there always to the index from April to April. So we are asking to authorize a 4.19% cost of living increase for all non-exempt employees. And then we're also asking to adopt a resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District approving the budget for the fiscal year 22-23. With that, I would like to hand it over to Peter. And Peter, you can share with the board the highlights of this year's budget and changes.
Okay, thank you, Clemens. Yeah, try as you may to not hit all the important pieces. You know, we've talked about them so many times in the past, and also during this process, we also try to really lay out kind of those really the impact items in the staff reports. They are for both water and sewer service charges, water service charges and sewer service charges. For our major revenue items, we budget for property tax less than we annually receive, and that's mainly because of ERAF. We mainly budget for what we expect to see in secured property taxes. The other for expenses, it really said that's really for the sewer side, SAM, and then for the water side, payroll. And those we look at, we try to capture as much data as we can and still kind of maintain these deadlines that we have internally. So I said we have data through April, and so I said we are constantly looking at that to see if there's any changes that need to be made, or if anything is swinging that we did not anticipate during February and March. So the other changes that are in this version that we didn't see the last time around was basically the solidification of the COLA increase of 4.19%, the water reliability charges, as well as the sewer service charges. We have to wait for that data, and so that's probably the last piece that comes in. We've also updated the reserve requirement. We're going to talk about that later, but I said we basically through this budget we've captured what we expect. We've basically eliminated the 2 months and changed it to 6 months for both sewer and water in our operational reserves. And last, I said we included some funds for the 65th anniversary celebration in September. Not a whole lot, but as far as that was new. And I said all of you have the reports in front of you. The legend is in the back. As far as the breakdown for the first 2 pages, which the detail is right behind it. The big thing here is basically those cash flow trackers for both sewer and water. If you go all the way down, yeah, it's not going to be a number that anybody likes to see. We're going into reserves by quite a bit for both sewer and water. We've thought about this and talked about it throughout the process, and a lot of it is really the fact that we've had a number of projects budgeted for that really has just not taken place for various reasons over the last 3 to 4 years. We do have sufficient reserves in terms of our capital reserves to fund these without that's really period. If you look at our monthly reports, you'll see as far as our cash position for both sewer and water in our LAIF and CAMP accounts, and we have the funds available in reserves to fund these projects. We are going to go. We'll see how the year goes as far as cash flow, but we may not have to tap into those as much as we're expecting, just because of the way that the money comes in throughout the year. So that's the big piece there. But sewer, $2.85 million expected, and for water, $2.5 million. And if you go through each segment of the cash flow, you'll see as far as we are supporting operations with our operational revenue. So I said that's the big piece there. And then other pieces are kind of really in place, as well as connection fees, interest, debt service, those types of items. But really, so if any more questions you have, please let me have it.
All right, we have questions or comments from public, board members. People starting to notice how late it is.
Well,
We've seen this before.
I want to thank staff and Peter Peter Decker, who's not here, for all the hard work on this.
Mm-hmm.
I have enormous confidence in the work you have put into this, and so I would be happy to make a motion to approve it.
Okay. And I see a second from Sid. So motion by Catherine, second by Sid. So we're moving to authorize a 4.19% cost of living increase for all non-exempt employees and adopt the resolution next in order. Resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District approving budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023. Let's do a roll call. Director Slater-Carter.
Yes.
Director Soft.
Aye.
Director Young votes aye, and Director Boyd votes aye. So by a vote of 4-0, the motion carries. All right, and my thanks as well. Staff has done an exemplary job on this, and Peter Decker, extraordinary effort on the part of a director.
Well, it was so much work he had to go on vacation.
I'm sure that after all this time in, that it's hard to actually miss tonight to see it all the way through, but we do appreciate his hard work. All right, let's go to new business 3, review and possible action concerning revision to reserve policy.
Yeah, so this is something that's essentially coming out of the parallel process of the Prop 218 discussions, as well as the budget preparation. So we essentially are talking about that Bartle Wells, Alex Handlers has looked at our reserve policy, participated in the discussions, Peter Medina as well as Peter Dicker. We did talk about this also with the full finance committee, so Catherine as well. I want to get back to Peter. Peter's help was every year very impressive with the budget process, and essentially his own documents that he uses to double check our numbers. So this is essentially a recommendation from consultants and finance committee. The changes to the reserve policy. All right. Well, how do I start on this? We have 3 buckets on the reserve policy. We have an operations reserve, we have the capital reserve, and we have a connections reserve. We're not suggesting any change to the capital reserves. We're suggesting a change to the operating reserve. Operating reserve is on both the water and sewer side has a sliding. It's a minimum and maximum, and the minimum is 2. At least on the sewer side. And Peter's going to tell me later if that's true for the water side as well.
Right.
But we're trying to get this squared away so that we think the upper limit was 10. We think 2 is too little. We need to have at least an operating reserve of 6 months in the account to be able to function. So we want to change that. The other change is to the connection charge reserve, and we are essentially planning to eliminate the connection charge reserve. We don't think there's a need for it. The need for the connection charge reserve, for connection charges are restricted funds. Need can only be spent on capital improvements. The next agenda item on this agenda is actually one where we ask to adopt the connection charge report. That's essentially sufficient to take care of the ensuring that the connection charges are spent appropriately. Peter, I was winging it. What are we really doing? Can you correct what I said?
For winging it, yeah, you just went. You got very close. So sewer had a range of 10 and 2 months. We are eliminating the 2-month bottom thresholds floor and raising it to 6 months. That's a sewer, sorry. And water had just a 2-month set amount. Now we want to raise that to 6 months. That's the difference between sewer and water. Sewer will still have a range. Water will not. Water will have a set 6-month target goal. Connection fees. Yes, we are eliminating that reserve. What we've seen, and is we do not anticipate. So the reason that reserve was there was in the years where we collected more connection fees than we spent for CIP for new customers, that would create a problem. We have not experienced that. I said I've been with you guys for about 10 years now. We've never experienced that. And the way that the CIP is going forward, we do not expect to see that in the future, but in the years where that may occur, that may come back, where basically we are reserving the funds that were collected in the previous year for CIP projects in the next year, just so that they don't fall into operations and get spent that way. So, but I said, with just basically what we've seen over the last a number of years, we do not anticipate that occurring. So,
all right. Do we have any public comment? Any board members discussion? Sid?
Just a quick one on, it says that the new customers and existing customers will be split 50-50 when they merge the Alta Vista and, oops, it got small all of a sudden, sorry, Portola zones to improve reliability and to provide service to new customers. But it also said that there's a failed main under and along Highway 1 on that same footnote. The Portola zone isn't anywhere, or Alta Vista is not anywhere
Sorry,
near
we're on
Highway
the
1.
We're on the reserve policy item.
And what is this?
I'm not sure.
I don't know, because I asked you and you wouldn't answer me. Are we on agenda item 1?
No.
Okay, never mind.
We're on new business 3.
Okay, I thought we were on 1. Never mind.
No, I tried to answer with the 2.
Oh, I thought you were like doing
No,
this. Be
2.
quiet. Okay, so on as far as increasing our what are we on? I'm
We're
sorry.
on item 3, reserve policy.
Reserves. Are we going to just suddenly fund it, or is it going to be a gradual thing?
Not sure if I understand the question.
Well, we're upping our reserve policy, right?
We're updating the policy, the existing policy.
No, but we're increasing.
Increasing.
Yes, we're increasing the operations reserve.
Okay, so how are you going to start increasing it?
It's
Like
actually
one
not
big
true.
lump sum?
We don't necessarily increase it.
Okay.
We had a range of minimum 2 million to 10 million.
But we're starting at what right now, today?
We're saying we need to have a minimum 6.
How are we going to get to the 6 is what I'm trying to ask.
It's a clear question.
So, Peter, you can probably answer that. Essentially, Peter, we have the money in the bank or we don't? I mean, correct?
Yes.
Now we do. Right
no,
now
yes, we do.
Okay.
And so I think on a monthly basis on the consent agenda, you'll see there's a worksheet there that's called the yearly activity analysis, and the very first page of it is the cash position, and it lays out the various accounts that we have where the cash is physically at. And so it's Wells Fargo, CAM, and Lake.
I think we can keep it short. I think what's happening, look, we're all tired.
Yeah, I am.
So I think let me see if I've just got this right. We're increasing the bottom, the minimum amount. We currently exceed that amount in the funds, and then if it dips below that, how do we fill to
you
the?
essentially will be notified in the next budget process, right? Or the next time we look at our finances, Peter, this could be in a 6-month finance review, for example. I think that's the next time we look at our reserves, and then you're essentially shown that we don't have sufficient reserves like we did for ever on the water side, right? So what happens then? What happens then is we basically notify you that we're under, and we're declaring the goal to raise it up, right? And how is ultimately by adjusting the budget and raising rates, et cetera. But I mean, we don't have we weren't able to have any reserves on the water side for a very long time.
Yeah.
So,
but for now, we're not like suddenly having to plunk a bunch into reserves. That's what I was meant to ask.
We're adjusting our goal. We want 6 months. 2 months is not sufficient. That's all. And through operations or a number of mechanisms, which are really operational, we hope to get to that 6-month threshold.
Okay.
All right. So let me urge us. Can we take a vote on this? If we're ready, can I have a so moved? Do we have a second? So Catherine and Phil. To adopt the resolution next in order, resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District approving and adopting revisions to the reserve policy. Director Slater-Carter.
Yes.
Director Softy.
Aye.
Director Young.
Aye.
Director Boyd votes aye by 4-0. The motion is carried. Item 4, review and possible action concerning adoption of connection charge.
There's still a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you up there, Greg.
Whoops.
Greg?
You're on mute, Greg.
I would like to comment on this item when you're ready.
I'm sorry about what, Greg?
We're ready. No.
Wait, let me
I would
run.
like to comment on. I would like to comment on this item when you're ready.
Number 4.
Which item?
Yeah.
Item 4, connection fees.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Item 4, review and possible action concerning adoption of connection charge report. Clemens?
Yes. A very simple administrative act. Senate Bill 1760 is essentially that's the Senate bill that requires local governments have a connection charge report, essentially the information about the capacity charges, what they're used for, etc. So we adopt this report each year, and as you can see, what it shows is really, it shows how much money we actually collected each year in connection fees. And then we show that we spent the same amount on capital projects. Or in other words, we have to ensure that we spent at least the restricted funds, the connection fees, each year on capital improvements. So here we're asking to authorize the filing of the annual connection report with the district clerk.
All right, Greg?
So the reason I held my comments all night for this is because I know you had to get the other work out of the way. But there's something in this small memo which is potentially useful and could allow me to advance my concerns in a productive way with the cooperation of Clemens and your attorney. As you know, I've done some research, and the per connection asset foundation, the assets at SAM and at Montara on a per connection basis at current replacement cost are about $150,000 per connection. And I'm said repeatedly, I wish you would raise the connection costs and so forth. But I realize there are real world constraints on that. One of them would be you would drive everybody to a septic system or keep people on wells, possibly depleting the aquifer. So it's not an easy thing to do, even though it's quite clear that SAM has $150 million in assets, current replacement cost, and most of those aren't on your balance sheet. So you can't see them when you're designing your reserve policies. But this memo cites Senate Bill 1760. And I would love a pointer to that copy of the code and anything else that you feel bears on what water and sewer districts are allowed to do with charging connection fees. Because those people who are joining, they haven't been paying for the bond since 2003 like the rest of the ratepayers have. The rest of us have accumulated equity, if you will, as well as the fact that by joining, they're relying on $150,000 of asset foundation that they're not paying to join. So I would like to advance my concerns in a productive way by first understanding the legal limitations on what you're facing. But it's quite clear to me that the reserve policies are inadequate, connection fees are inadequate, but I don't want to just be talking. I want to actually try and give you some levers that maybe you can use to adjust your charges in a productive way. So that's my request. If somebody can send me what the code is, I'd like to take a look at that and understand the limitations you faced in charging for connection fees. Because the next 100 connections you don't charge $150,000 for, that's about $10 million, which could go a long way to securing the financial future of the district. So that's why I'm treating this with some urgency. So that's my request. I have no objection really to this report. I understand it's all pro forma, but I do have a request to understand the mechanics behind the legalities of charging the appropriate amount for connections. Thank you.
So what this is the Senate bill, and this was passed many years ago, it's about agencies that were hoarding connection fees and not spending them on what connection fees are intended to be spent on. And this is just an accountability mechanism to say, you said you were collecting it for connection fees, show that you're spending at least that much on what connection fees are intended to be spent for. So this is a very simple but practical accounting mechanism. Bill, you had a
I was just saying that it's, I would actually like to hear the answer that Greg asked for in the terms he asked for it, so that I can know what are the laws regarding how we set that money and what we can do with it. Because I'm sure it's a little more specific than just the couple sentences you said. And so if he's going to get it, I might as well give it.
well,
Should we have that as an agenda item?
Well, I'm suggesting we actually ask Christine what she has to say about this right now, because my assumption is this is not just one piece of paper that lays it out. This is a hodgepodge of information that's stuffed somewhere.
And
this was passed in, I believe, 1998. It was introduced by Senator Haynes and co-authored by, and I mentioned this because you'll know why, co-authored by Senator Cobb. So February 18th, 1998, they introduced it. I'll provide the link to Clemens. It's very short, and it is pretty much as described. So I don't think I'm underselling it. It's just one of these regular, very specific accountability mechanisms that has been that the state levies on agencies like ours.
I would like to add, however, on setting connection fees. The report is one thing, on setting them, which is what I thought I heard you talking about, Greg. There are all kinds of court cases and settlements and things that don't show up in the legislation and that can fundamentally change the way things work. So it's more than simply the legislation.
Yeah, if you're looking for that kind of stuff, it's a much deeper subject than the Senate bill.
Yes.
All right. So I'm looking for a motion to approve,
So
to authorize the filing. So Catherine and Bill, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Reports. Can we do a short sewer authority report?
No, it was pretty much all taken up in the budget, and so for those of you who are interested, watch the Half Moon Bay City Council meeting next Tuesday. The GCSD board meeting will not be until the third Thursday of July, so that's in a while.
July or June?
I'm sorry, of June. And the next SAM board meeting, I think, is help me with that. 12?
Yes. It's on the 12th.
It's on the 12th.
I looked it up because I have to go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good. We'll have fun.
Okay. Midcoast Community Council meeting. Greg, we're just feeling it tonight. If you can keep it brief.
I know you are. June 10th, there's an emergency preparedness fair down in Half Moon Bay. We're going to try and have a booth there. We're probably going to hand out fentanyl test strips and maybe even Narcan. We're also going to have a suggestion box so that residents of the coast, including even Half Moon Bay, can put in suggestions on things they would like to see done. And then there's some major transportation issues at Surfers Beach we're going to be discussing. I think you're aware that we have serious erosion there, and we need to get started working on that. And then, of course, we presented way too many things to Supervisor Mueller that we had as priorities. They asked us to prioritize, and an interesting observation came out. Why? What's the budget for the Mid-Coast? How much money do you collect from us? How much do you spend here? Within what framework are we supposed to prioritize? So expect significant discussions going forward about the fact that we don't understand the flow of funds for our region. And I'm resisting the idea of prioritizing until I have an accounting on where our money's going. Thanks.
All right. Catherine, anything for CSDA or LAFCO?
No.
Attorney's report, Christine?
No report.
Any director's reports?
Real quick, I think Clemens sent it out to you, but we did have a meeting of the anniversary celebration committee, so we're making progress, but there's nothing that needs to be decided. Right now, we're working on tables and chairs and parking down there.
Well, thank you for working on that.
Oh, yeah.
General manager's report, anything extra?
Yes, I want to highlight a couple of things. The first one is the newsletter was not available at the time of the packet preparation. It's up on the website now, so we have our new newsletter out.
In English and Spanish.
In English and Spanish, yes. And as usual, it is actually sent together with the bills for the majority of the district. For Pillar Ridge folks, it's directly mailed. Okay, so that's one item. And then I want to point out that I will be not in the office for the next two meetings, for the next two board meetings. So that's the June 15 and the July 6 board meeting. However, not able to simply cancel those because we are awaiting our audit. We have not received our audit to date. We know it's basically ready. We know that. So we don't understand the hang up. But as soon as that document comes in, we will either schedule a special meeting or hold a regular scheduled meeting that I can participate remotely from. So just a heads up that there's a possibility that meetings will be canceled or special meetings held. So I can't commit to a specific schedule, unfortunately.
Okay.
Is
Yes.
it because you're going to be on vacation and you're not calling in from remote or anything, right? For the meetings you can't attend, you'll just be on vacation, right? It's not that you're going to be out of the area and you can call in from remote.
I will be out of the area, yes.
But
So
not calling in from remote.
if there is a meeting we know there's a meeting,
Oh, I see. Okay.
what I'm saying is we will hold this meeting.
Okay.
I will not be here in the district, but I
That's
will
all right.
participate remotely.
You're entitled to have some time off, Clemens.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, yeah.
You work hard.
That's an actual earned benefit.
Yes, it is.
We don't want to cheat on that. Okay, anything for future agendas? No? Okay, so we are going to, we're gonna break here. We're gonna take a brief recess. We're gonna thank PCTV for being here and helping get this message out to the public. We're gonna reconvene briefly in closed session, legal counsel existing litigation. That would be about the Half Moon Bay lawsuit and the Dow Chemical lawsuit. 3 potential cases for anticipated litigation, and then public employee performance evaluation and conference with labor negotiators for our general manager, and then conference with real property negotiators for 771 Rivera Road here in Montara. If we take any action, we'll report out after closed session. That, thank everyone who's been here, staff and guests and members of the public, and we are in recess.